You arrive without arriving, already seated beside a quiet river before the day fully knows itself. The light is soft and undecided, resting gently behind your closed eyelids. The air feels cool on your skin. Not cold. Just awake enough to notice. You breathe in slowly, as if the morning is breathing with you, and you breathe out even more slowly, as if there is nowhere else to be. The river does not rush. It does not perform. It simply exists, wide and patient, holding its shape without effort. You sit with your hands resting loosely, warmed by the promise of sunlight that has not yet fully arrived. Somewhere nearby, water moves quietly over stone. The sound is faint, like a distant hum, the kind you notice only when everything else grows quiet. This is the place before motion, before change decides to show itself. Nothing needs to happen yet. The river knows this. You begin to know it too. Entropy, a word that sometimes arrives wearing sharp edges, does not feel sharp here at all. Here, it feels like direction without pressure. Like a path that exists even when no one is walking it. You do not need to understand it yet. You only need to feel how stillness holds space for what comes next. The surface of the water reflects the pale sky, smooth and unbroken. If you watch closely, very closely, you might notice the tiniest movement, the kind that could be mistaken for imagination. A suggestion. A whisper. Science, in this moment, does not arrive carrying tools or numbers. It arrives like light spreading across water, slowly and without announcement. You sense that order does not force itself into being. It waits. You inhale gently. You exhale gently. The river remains calm. Everything in the universe, even now, even here, rests in this same quiet agreement. Energy does not disappear. It relaxes. It spreads out, like warmth moving across your hands when you cup them together. You feel that warmth now, whether it is truly there or simply imagined, and it does not matter which. Your body understands either way. You shift slightly, settling more comfortably, because even listening to a river can be tiring work, and the river would probably laugh at that, kindly, if rivers laughed. It does not. But the thought makes you smile anyway. Entropy, you begin to sense, is not about things falling apart. It is about things becoming free to rest where they naturally want to be. Like you, settling into this moment. The morning grows a little brighter. Not suddenly. Just enough to notice. You realize that before motion, there is permission. Permission for energy to choose a direction. Permission for stillness to loosen its grip, just slightly. Your breath follows this permission. In. Out. You are not late. You are not early. You are exactly on time for nothing to be happening yet. The river does not demand understanding. It offers companionship. You sense how, across the universe, systems pause like this, balanced and quiet, waiting for the smallest nudge. A difference so gentle it barely deserves a name. Barely deserves attention. Your shoulders soften. Your jaw loosens. The space behind your eyes grows warm and heavy. If you stay here long enough, which you do, because there is nowhere else to go, you begin to feel that stillness is not empty. It is full. Full of possibility that has not yet decided what shape to take. You breathe again, slower this time, and the breath feels deeper, as if it knows where it is going without being told. Somewhere in the river, beneath the smooth surface, water is already choosing a path. Not urgently. Not dramatically. Just inevitably. You do not follow it yet. You simply sit. You listen. You rest beside the quiet river, knowing that movement will come, and knowing it does not need to come right now, as the water, very gently, begins to lean forward, almost imperceptibly, toward its next becoming. You are still seated beside the river, but something has shifted, so subtly that you might miss it if you were trying too hard to notice. The air feels the same. The light still rests softly behind your eyes. And yet, the water has begun to lean forward. Not rushing. Not pulling. Just leaning, the way a thought leans towards sleep. You breathe in, and the breath arrives easily. You breathe out, and the breath seems to follow the river, stretching gently into space. This is how stillness chooses a direction. Entropy does not announce itself. It does not knock. It does not hurry you along. It simply allows what is spread out to continue spreading, the way warmth moves across your skin when you stop resisting it. The river does not become wild when it moves. It becomes honest. You watch the surface now, no longer perfectly smooth, but softly textured. Small ripples appear, then fade, then appear again, as if the water is practicing motion. The sound deepens slightly. Still quiet. Just more present. You rest your hands in your lap and notice a faint warmth there, a comfort that feels earned without effort. Movement, you realize, does not steal calm. It carries it. In science, entropy is often spoken of as tendency. Not command. Not collapse. A tendency for things to relax into what feels easiest. You understand this immediately, because your own body does the same. Muscles loosen when they are allowed to. Breath deepens when it is not watched too closely. The river teaches without words. Energy, when left alone, spreads out. Not because it must. Because it can. You imagine a drop of warmth placed gently into cool water, how it drifts outward, sharing itself evenly, until there is no sharp boundary left. Nothing is lost in that sharing. Nothing is broken. You smile softly at the thought that the universe might simply prefer comfort. It feels like a reasonable preference. The river curves slightly ahead, choosing a path around stones you cannot see from here. There is no struggle in the curve. Only accommodation. You inhale. The breath enters smoothly. You exhale. The breath follows the curve. Change, in this moment, feels kind. Entropy is not a force pushing things away from order. It is a direction things follow when they are free to stop holding themselves in place. Like you, settling more deeply into where you are sitting. Your shoulders drop another fraction. Your neck softens. If you listen closely, the river sounds almost like breathing. In. Out. You are comforted by the thought that nothing here is being rushed toward an ending. Everything is simply moving toward balance, toward a gentler distribution of itself. The morning light grows warmer now, touching the edges of the riverbank. You feel it faintly on your skin, even through closed eyes. The river continues forward, not because it is chased, but because forward is open. You realize that direction does not require urgency. It only requires possibility. Somewhere upstream, water has already passed this point. Somewhere downstream, it has not yet arrived. Here, it is exactly where it needs to be. So are you. You breathe again, slower now, as if your breath has learned something from the water. Movement, you learn, can be soft enough to fall asleep inside. The river carries stillness with it, like a memory it does not need to revisit. Even as it moves, it remains calm. You sense that this same quiet motion happens everywhere. In cooling air. In settling dust. In thoughts drifting toward rest. Entropy does not erase what was. It smooths the path forward. Your body understands this deeply. Your mind begins to follow. The river widens slightly as it continues on, its surface catching more light, more space. The ripples spread farther now, overlapping gently, creating patterns that appear and dissolve without effort. You do not try to follow any single ripple. You let them come and go. Your breath aligns with the flow. In. Out. Downstream, beyond where you can see, the water will begin to shape itself in new ways. Curves will deepen. Eddies will form. For now, you remain here, watching the direction take hold, feeling reassured that change does not mean loss, as the river continues its quiet journey, and far ahead, almost patiently, shapes begin to rise from the flow. You remain beside the river as its movement becomes easier to notice, not faster, just more confident in itself. The water no longer only leans forward. It begins to shape its own path. You breathe in, slowly, and notice how the air feels warmer now, carrying the faint promise of day. You breathe out, and the sound of the river seems to meet you halfway. Patterns begin quietly. At first, they are almost nothing. A curve where the bank bends. A shimmer where light touches the surface at just the right angle. You do not try to name them. You simply notice. Entropy, here, does not scatter the river into randomness. It gives the river enough freedom to explore what it can become. The water flows around stones hidden beneath the surface, and small whirlpools form, lingering briefly before releasing themselves back into the current. They are not mistakes. They are responses. You feel something similar in your own body. The way your breath finds a rhythm without instruction. The way your heart keeps time without asking for permission. This is how patterns rise from flow. Science often explains this with careful language, but you do not need careful language right now. You need soft understanding. When energy spreads, it does not do so evenly all at once. It moves, meets resistance, adjusts, and in that adjusting, structure appears. Not rigid. Responsive. You watch the surface of the river glitter as overlapping ripples meet, cross, and dissolve. For a moment, they create repeating shapes, delicate and temporary. Then they fade. You smile at how brief they are. Nothing here is trying to last forever. The universe, you sense, is comfortable with passing arrangements. Clouds form this way. So do coastlines. So do the great spirals of distant galaxies, turning slowly, patiently, shaped by movement and release. You do not picture them sharply. You only feel their similarity to this river. The same spreading. The same shaping. Your breath follows the rhythm now without conscious effort. Inhale as patterns form. Exhale as they drift onward. You realize that complexity does not arrive with noise. It arrives with repetition. Gentle repetition. The river repeats its curves. The ripples repeat their crossings. Your breath repeats itself, faithful and unremarkable. And from repetition, beauty appears. You shift slightly, more comfortable now, as if your body has decided it trusts this process. There is a warmth in your chest, steady and reassuring. Entropy does not erase order. It allows order to explore many forms. You imagine leaves drifting on the water, not because they must, but because the current carries them into quiet choreography. They cluster briefly, then separate, then meet again. No leaf complains. At least, not out loud. The thought makes you smile again, softly. The river's sound deepens, not louder, just fuller, like a low, continuous note that never demands attention. It is always there, supporting everything else. You sense how patterns exist at every scale, from the smallest ripples to the widest bends of the river, and how none of them need to be managed. They happen because movement allows them to. Your mind begins to loosen its grip. Thoughts drift through like reflections, forming, shimmering, fading. You do not chase them. You let them behave like the water. This, too, is entropy at work. Not chaos. Flow finding expression. The morning light now dances more freely across the surface, breaking into fragments that rearrange themselves moment by moment. No two reflections are the same. And yet, all of them belong. You feel reassured by this. You do not need to stay the same to remain whole. Patterns linger just long enough to be noticed. Some last a breath. Some last longer. You watch a slow eddy form near the bank, circling calmly, holding a pocket of stillness inside motion. It feels familiar. You rest your attention there, breathing gently, feeling how complexity can feel like rest when it is allowed to be gentle. The river continues onward, carrying its patterns without attachment. Some dissolve quickly. Others repeat farther downstream. You sense that some structures in the universe linger longer than others, not because they resist change, but because they are well suited to the flow. The idea settles warmly inside you. Your breath remains steady. Your body feels supported. The river does not rush toward its future. It allows its patterns to rise, to play, to fade. You sit quietly, absorbing this lesson without effort, knowing that some patterns will remain, held gently by the current, as the water moves on, and you sense that certain shapes, once formed, choose to linger just a little longer. You continue to sit beside the river, feeling its patterns pass without asking you to follow them. Some dissolve quickly, like passing thoughts. Others remain, held softly in place, as if the water has agreed to pause there for a while. You breathe in, slow and unhurried. You breathe out, slower still. Near the riverbank, you notice a calm pocket of water tucked behind a smooth stone. The current flows around it, not through it, and inside that small shelter, the surface is nearly still. An eddy. A resting place inside motion. You feel drawn to it, not with curiosity, but with recognition. This is how order persists. Not by resisting the river, not by standing against the flow, but by fitting into it so naturally that movement chooses to move elsewhere. Entropy does not wash everything away. It allows certain shapes to remain when they belong. You feel this truth settle gently in your chest. In the universe, there are structures like this everywhere. Crystals forming their quiet geometry. Stars holding their glow for long stretches of time. Cells maintaining their delicate balance. None of them shout for permanence. They simply rest where the flow supports them. The science behind this feels almost unnecessary to explain, because your body already understands it. You know how it feels to find a comfortable position and stop shifting. You know how stillness can appear inside movement when alignment happens. The river murmurs softly, its sound layered now with pauses and gentle swirls. It feels like listening to breathing that has learned how to rest between breaths. You inhale. You pause. You exhale. Stability, you realize, is not a frozen thing. It is dynamic, alive, continuously renewed by balance. The eddy holds its shape not because nothing changes, but because change moves in circles that return gently to themselves. Nothing is stuck. Nothing is strained. You imagine how atoms arrange themselves in repeating patterns, not because they are forced, but because those arrangements feel natural, settled, calm. You do not picture details. You feel the idea instead, like a sense of things clicking softly into place. Warmth spreads across your shoulders. Your posture eases. Entropy does not forbid order. It welcomes it, briefly, wherever conditions allow. The river continues forward, but it does not steal this pocket of calm. It protects it, curving around it, respecting its presence. You find comfort in this. The universe is not careless. It is permissive. You rest your attention on the still pool again, watching faint reflections gather there, unbroken by ripples. Light lingers longer in this place. You smile faintly, thinking how even light enjoys resting when it can. Your breath remains steady, falling into a rhythm that feels borrowed from the water. In these gentle pauses, complexity finds time to deepen. Structures strengthen. Balance becomes familiar. This is where life begins to feel possible. Not in the rush. Not in the turbulence. But in these sheltered moments where energy flows just enough, and no more. You feel reassured by the idea that stability does not require perfection. It only requires compatibility. Your heartbeat feels slow and even, echoing the quiet rotation of the eddy. You are not holding yourself together. You are being held. The river teaches that order is not something you build by effort. It is something that happens when conditions are kind. You let that thought drift through you, unchallenged. Around the still pool, the current continues, unbothered, carrying its patterns downstream. Both motion and rest coexist, neither threatened by the other. You feel a deep sense of permission. Permission to pause. Permission to remain. The morning has fully arrived now, though it still feels gentle, filtered through calm awareness. The air rests comfortably against your skin. You breathe again, unhurried. Some structures last longer than others, you sense, not because they fight entropy, but because they work with it so well that the river makes space for them. This thought settles warmly inside you, like a truth you have always known but never named. You sit quietly, absorbing the comfort of persistence without strain, watching how the river continues to move while holding these pockets of peace, and as you breathe, you begin to sense that in such calm places, something even more delicate may soon begin to stir. You remain beside the river, but now you notice something tender forming within its calm pauses. Not separate from the flow. Not protected by walls. Simply present, like a breath resting between breaths. You breathe in warmth, slow and easy. You breathe out gratitude, though you do not try to name what it is for. This is where life begins to make sense. Life does not arrive as resistance. It arrives as cooperation. The river continues to move, and yet within its gentle eddies, delicate arrangements appear and hold. A gathering of warmth. A balance of motion. A quiet persistence that feels almost shy. You feel it in your chest now, a soft internal rhythm, steady without effort. Your body recognizes this place immediately. Living things do not stop entropy. They borrow time from it. You sense how cells, forests, and bodies exist as temporary harmonies, maintained not by force, but by constant, gentle exchange. Energy flows in. Energy flows out. Nothing is hoarded. Nothing is wasted. The river does not mind this borrowing. It seems pleased by it. You imagine tiny structures forming within the calm pockets of flow, arranging themselves carefully, breaking apart, then forming again. Always adjusting. Always listening. This is not fragility. This is responsiveness. You smile faintly, because the word alive suddenly feels less dramatic and more comforting. Alive means participating. Alive means moving just enough. Your breath settles into a soothing pattern. Inhale warmth. Exhale ease. The science behind life often sounds busy, but here it feels quiet and intimate. Life is simply what happens when energy learns how to circulate kindly. You rest your hands against your body and notice their warmth. That warmth is movement. That movement is life. Nothing here is permanent. And yet, nothing feels rushed. The river carries nutrients, heat, and motion, offering them freely, never asking what they will become. Life accepts the offer, shapes it briefly, then returns it. You feel comforted by this honesty. Life does not pretend to last forever. It commits fully to now. The river continues, patient and unbothered, while small living systems rise and settle within it, like soft lanterns floating for a while before drifting on. The image makes you smile again, because even the universe seems to enjoy a little decoration. Your shoulders relax. Your jaw softens. You realize that life does not stand apart from entropy. It is one of entropy's favorite expressions. Movement creates opportunity. Opportunity allows organization. Organization feels like care. You feel cared for in this moment, not by intention, but by alignment. The warmth in your chest deepens, spreading slowly, as if your body is remembering how to trust the flow again. Life persists not by holding still, but by continuously adjusting, like the river responding to stones, bends, and changing ground. You sense how ecosystems breathe this way. How your own body does the same. always balancing intake and release. You do not need to manage it. It is already happening. The river hums softly, its sound layered with gentle motion, and you feel how life listens to that hum, matching its tempo. In this borrowed stillness, complexity becomes tender rather than overwhelming. Nothing tries to be more than it is. You breathe again, slower now, and feel gratitude rise without effort. Life feels less like a struggle and more like a quiet agreement, to take what is needed, to give back what is no longer required, to rest whenever the flow allows. You sit with that understanding, letting it settle deeply. The river continues onward, and life continues with it, never separate, never opposed. You sense that even your thoughts participate in this same exchange, drifting, rearranging, releasing. For now, you simply rest in the feeling of being beautifully aligned, aware that this gentle borrowing extends inward, and that even thought itself, like water, will soon reveal its own slow current. You remain beside the river, but now the water feels closer, as if it has quietly widened to include you. The flow is steady, unhurried, and you sense it not only with your eyes, but somewhere deeper, behind thought itself. You breathe in, and the breath feels light. You breathe out, and something loosens. Your mind begins to behave like the river. A thought appears, soft-edged and incomplete, then drifts onward without asking for explanation. Another follows. Then another. You do not chase them. You do not collect them. You simply notice how they move. This is what thinking feels like when it is allowed to rest. The mind, you realize, is not a place where thoughts are stored like objects on shelves. It is a slow current where patterns form, dissolve, and reform, shaped gently by experience and release. Memory does not sit still. It flows. You feel this as a faint floating sensation, as if awareness itself has grown lighter, buoyed by something steady beneath it. The river hums quietly, and your thoughts seem to hum along, matching its pace without effort. Entropy, here, feels like permission. Permission for thoughts to spread, soften, and find their natural resting places. You imagine leaves touching the surface of the water. They arrive gently. They drift. They turn once or twice. Then they continue on. No leaf insists on staying in the same spot. You smile at this, because the mind often forgets that lesson. The science behind memory is often explained with words like storage and retrieval, but that language feels too rigid for this moment. Here, remembering feels more like revisiting a bend in the river you have passed before, familiar yet changed by time. You sense how learning happens the same way. Not by forcing new ideas into place, but by allowing them to flow through, reshaping the current slightly as they pass. Your breath remains slow and steady. Inhale. Exhale. Thoughts loosen their grip. You notice how awareness expands when nothing is being held too tightly. The space between thoughts grows warmer, quieter. This space is not empty. It is spacious. The river continues onward, and your mind follows, not as a leader, not as a passenger, but as part of the same movement. Entropy does not scatter your thoughts into chaos. It gives them room to settle where they belong. You feel reassured by this. You do not need to manage your mind tonight. It already knows how to flow. A small smile forms again as you realize how often thinking feels difficult only because it is being dammed, redirected, controlled. Left alone, it becomes gentle. The river's surface reflects the sky in shifting fragments, never holding one image for long. Your mind reflects experience the same way, never fixed, always responsive. You let the similarities sink in. Breathing feels easier now, as if breath and thought have agreed to move together. In. Out. You sense how even confusion is just a temporary swirl in the current. It will pass. It always does. You do not need clarity right now. You need flow. The river carries sound, light, and motion effortlessly. Your mind carries impressions the same way, not to keep them, but to experience them. This understanding feels kind. It releases you from the quiet task of constant thinking. You allow your thoughts to drift downstream with your exhale, each one lighter than the last. Some dissolve completely. Others fade into the background hum. Your awareness rests on the movement itself, calm and unbroken. The river stretches farther now, beyond what you can easily imagine, and your mind stretches with it, wide and unconfined. You feel deeply supported by this vastness. There is nothing you need to remember. Nothing you need to solve. The current continues. So do you. You sit quietly, breathing, floating inside this gentle mental flow, sensing that the river does not end here, and that beyond thought, beyond mind, it continues outward, widening into something even larger, where time itself begins to feel like water. You remain with the river as it widens, not dramatically, just enough to feel more spacious around you. The water moves on, and you move with it, not by standing up, but by noticing how moments themselves seem to drift forward. You breathe in presence. You breathe out into the next moment. This is how time begins to feel when you stop trying to count it. Time, here, is not a sequence of marks or measures. It is flow. You sense it in the way the river never folds back on itself completely. It curves, it circles locally, but it always continues onward, carrying its history without returning to it. This forwardness feels gentle. You imagine walking barefoot along the riverbank, feeling warm earth beneath your feet. Each step lands where the last one cannot return. Not because it is forbidden, but because it is no longer needed. Entropy gives time its direction the way gravity gives water its path. Quietly. Consistently. You feel comfort in this. There is relief in not having to go backward. The river's sound accompanies you like a low, continuous guide, reminding you that movement does not require urgency. It only requires openness. You inhale slowly, noticing how the air feels slightly warmer now. You exhale, and the moment releases itself behind you. Nothing is taken away. Everything is carried forward. In science, time's direction is often discussed as something absolute, but here it feels personal, intimate, like a rhythm you can rest inside. The river does not hurry toward its future. It arrives there naturally. You sense how cooling things do not spontaneously warm again, how mixed waters do not unmix, and yet none of this feels sad. It feels settled. Irreversibility, in this light, feels like trust. You do not need to relive every moment. You are allowed to move on. Your body understands this deeply. Muscles relax when they are done working. Breaths complete themselves and make room for the next. The riverbank stretches ahead, familiar and new at the same time. You notice how each bend offers a different view, even though the water remains the same. Time does not repeat, but it rhymes softly. You smile at that thought, amused by how poetic the universe can be without trying. Your steps along the imagined bank are slow and comfortable. No destination pulls at you. Entropy does not rush you forward. It simply ensures that forward is where things unfold. You feel grounded by this certainty. The river widens further, its surface smoother now, reflecting more sky, more light. Moments feel broader here, less sharp around the edges. You breathe again, steady and unforced. Inhale presence. Exhale release. Time, you realize, is something you feel rather than something you track. It is the warmth lingering after sunlight. The echo after sound fades. You sense how memories soften as they move away, not erased, but blended into the larger flow of experience. Nothing is lost. Everything is integrated. The river continues, and you continue with it, step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment. There is no need to hurry. The future is already making space for you. You feel reassured knowing that time's direction is not an enemy. It is a companion, walking quietly beside you. The water ahead grows broader still, hinting at something vast beyond the bends. The sound deepens. The air feels open. You pause, breathing calmly, sensing that the river is about to widen into something even larger, as time itself begins to feel expansive, generous, and ready to open into the wide, star-filled distance ahead. You remain with the river, and yet the sense of place begins to widen, as if the water has quietly taught space itself how to breathe. The ground beneath you feels less solid now, not unstable, just generous, allowing awareness to drift outward without effort. You breathe slowly. You breathe as if the universe has time. The river continues, but it no longer feels confined to banks or earth. Its movement feels familiar, even as it stretches beyond what you can easily picture. This is where the stars begin to feel close. You do not look up suddenly. There is no sharp transition. The dark arrives gently, like a blanket settling into place. Cool darkness surrounds you, soft rather than empty, and within it, distant light appears, scattered and calm. Not flashing. Not demanding. Simply present. Stars, you sense, are not interruptions in the dark. They are part of its flow. They form the way eddies form in the river, gathering energy, glowing for a while, then slowly releasing themselves back into the wider current. Nothing about this feels dramatic. It feels patient. You imagine the river now as something vast and invisible, carrying warmth, motion, and light across enormous distances without ever needing to hurry. Stars follow this water. So do you. Your breath remains slow, and it feels natural to imagine that each inhale draws in a little of that distant glow. Each exhale releases it gently, returning it to where it belongs. Entropy here does not feel abstract. It feels like connection. Energy spreads. Light travels. Warmth moves outward, thinning softly, never vanishing, just becoming shared. You smile faintly at the idea that starlight is simply very patient warmth. The science behind stars often sounds intense, filled with extremes, but from here, it feels quiet and inevitable. Stars arise where conditions allow. They persist while balance holds. They fade when the flow changes. Nothing is forced. You feel comforted by how familiar this pattern feels, how similar it is to breath, to thought, to life beside the river. The dark around you hums softly, not with sound, but with presence. It feels like standing inside a held note that never quite resolves. You breathe again, slower now. Breathe slowly, as if breathing with the stars. They do not rush through their existence. They glow because glowing is what happens when energy rests briefly in one place. You imagine their light traveling gently, spreading thinner and wider, touching worlds, drifting through space like ripples moving across a night river. Some of that light reaches you now, quietly, after a long journey it never felt the need to announce. You welcome it without trying to understand it. Entropy guides this journey without effort. It allows energy to explore space freely, to distribute itself, to soften its intensity into calm illumination. You feel very small in the best possible way. Not insignificant. Included. The same flow that carries warmth through your body carries light through galaxies. The same direction that moves the river forward shapes the slow life of stars. You rest inside that thought, letting it settle deeply. There is gentle humor here too, in realizing that even the universe seems to prefer doing things the long way, taking its time, enjoying the view. You imagine stars lingering simply because they are comfortable, and the idea makes you smile. Your awareness drifts outward, touching vastness without strain. Distance does not feel far. It feels spacious. The darkness between stars feels supportive, like the quiet between breaths. Nothing presses. Nothing collapses. You feel safe inside this openness. Entropy does not rush the universe toward an ending. It allows it to unfold gradually, generously, sharing its energy until everything has had a chance to participate. You sense how galaxies themselves resemble slow whirlpools, turning gently within the greater flow, their shapes arising naturally from motion and balance. They are not constructions. They are responses. Your breath continues, steady and calm, matching this enormous rhythm without effort. You belong to this movement. Your warmth is not separate from stellar warmth. Your time is not separate from cosmic time. All of it follows the same water. You feel a deep reassurance in knowing that nothing here is wasted. Light fades, but it does not disappear. It spreads, touches, warms, then becomes something else. The universe feels kind in this way. You rest in the cool darkness, wrapped in distant light, sensing how entropy connects everything without demanding attention. The river you first sat beside has not gone anywhere. It has simply revealed its larger form. You breathe again, unhurried, letting the stars breathe with you. Somewhere far ahead, this vast flow will soften even more, spreading wider, quieter, slower, until light itself rests into balance. For now, you remain here, drifting gently, aware that every river continues onward, and that eventually, without rush or drama, all of this water, including starlight, will move toward a calm, waiting sea. You drift with the river as its movement becomes broader, slower, and more spacious than before. The stars around you no longer feel bright with effort, but warm with completion, like embers that glow without needing to rise. You breathe in gently. You breathe out into quiet. This feels like evening. Not an ending, but a long soft dusk where nothing is required to continue shining quite so brightly. The universe does not stop. It settles. The river widens now into something vast and open, its surface smoother, its motion almost imperceptible. Energy still moves, but it moves evenly, generously, without preference for any single place. This is what balance feels like. Entropy here is not motion toward collapse. It is motion toward rest. You sense how warmth spreads thinner, softer, until no place holds more than another. Light does the same, drifting outward until brightness feels shared, calm, and quiet. Nothing is lost in this spreading. Everything is included. You feel a deep reassurance in knowing that the universe does not rush toward darkness. It eases into calm. Your body responds instinctively. Muscles soften. Breath grows slower, deeper, less noticeable. You are not preparing for sleep. You are already close to it. The river no longer needs curves or eddies to express itself. It simply exists, wide and steady, holding all that has passed through it in gentle memory. Time here feels different. Not stretched. Not compressed. Just unimportant. Moments do not stack. They blend. You realize that the future, in this place, does not feel like a destination. It feels like a gradual release of tension. The science of this quiet evening speaks of equilibrium, of energy evenly shared, of differences softened until no direction feels urgent. But you do not need those words. You feel the meaning in your breath. Inhale. Exhale. The darkness around you feels warm rather than cold, like a familiar room with the lights turned low. Stars remain, but they no longer dominate the view. They rest inside the dark instead of standing apart from it. You smile faintly, amused by the thought that even stars know when it is time to dim the lights. The river hums softly, almost below hearing now, a presence more than a sound. It feels like the final note of a long song, held gently, without pressure to resolve. You sense how everything that once moved quickly has learned how to rest. Not by stopping. By spreading out. Entropy, in this evening light, feels like kindness. It allows intensity to soften. It allows motion to become comfort. Your awareness drifts without edges. Thoughts appear less frequently now, and when they do, they feel distant, like reflections on dark water. You do not reach for them. The universe feels very patient here. There is no deadline. No urgency. No demand for transformation. Everything that needed to happen has already happened. You feel safe inside this realization. The river carries no anxiety about what comes next. It simply continues its quiet sharing, offering what it holds to the wide openness ahead. You breathe again, slower still. In this long evening, beginnings and endings lose their importance. What matters is balance. Gentle sameness. Rest. You sense how the universe grows comfortable with itself, no longer rearranging with enthusiasm, but with care. This calm does not feel empty. It feels complete. The idea settles warmly inside you, easing something you did not realize you were holding. Nothing needs to be brighter. Nothing needs to be louder. You feel gratitude without effort, not directed at anything in particular, just a soft appreciation for being part of this quiet moment. The river continues to widen, its edges fading into openness, its movement barely distinguishable from stillness. You realize that you have returned, in a way, to where you began. Not the same place, but the same feeling. Stillness. You breathe gently, allowing yourself to rest inside this vast calm, knowing that this long evening does not end abruptly, but slowly, patiently, and that as the universe settles into quiet balance, you will soon find yourself once again beside the familiar riverbank, ready to rest completely, exactly where you started. You sit once more beside the river, noticing the gentle curves of the bank, the soft shimmer of water reflecting light you no longer need to name. The flow continues, calm and unhurried, carrying what it must, leaving the rest in quiet balance. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out even slower. Each inhale feels like warmth entering your chest. Each exhale releases the world gently, as if returning it to the river itself. You are here. Not somewhere else. Not elsewhere in time or space. Just here, beside the water that has carried so much and yet asks nothing of you. The air around you feels soft. A warm blanket of sound and light settles gently over your shoulders. The river's subtle hum becomes part of your own pulse. Entropy is no longer an abstract concept. It is something you feel. The slow movement of energy that allows patterns to form, stars to glow, thoughts to drift, life to borrow stillness, all of it flows beneath your awareness. You rest your hands in your lap and feel a quiet gratitude rise, unspoken and without effort. You do not need to hold anything. You do not need to control anything. Everything is exactly as it should be. The river continues onward, a companion that requires nothing and offers everything. The stars have long since returned to their quiet rotations, and even the distant light feels like a soft reminder that you are part of a much larger flow. Your breath aligns completely with this rhythm. In. Out. The rise and fall of your chest mirrors the water's gentle movements. Life, thought, light, energy, they all move and settle without forcing themselves. They do not resist. They do not hurry. You feel yourself merging with this understanding, so gently that it almost slips past awareness. Your shoulders soften. Your jaw relaxes. Even the tiny muscles in your hands release their quiet tension. The river carries the lessons of the stars, the mind, and the universe itself into your awareness, and you receive them without effort. Everything you have observed, felt, and imagined has been a preparation for this rest. The air feels warmer near your skin. A faint breeze brushes your face, carrying a softness that whispers of completion rather than endings. Your heartbeat joins the river's murmur, a subtle counterpoint to its infinite calm. You let the quiet settle deeper. Inhale. Exhale. No urgency presses. No shadow looms. Nothing demands your attention. Just the river. Just the stars. Just your breath. You feel exactly where you need to be. You are held by the flow that carries everything, including yourself. Everything has its place, and so do you. The water moves, not needing approval. Light drifts, not seeking notice. You breathe, not trying to remember or solve. All is aligned. All is gentle. The river continues without you, yet includes you perfectly. The stars continue without pause, yet you are connected. Your breath continues without thought, yet you notice it fully. You feel the sensation of rest building, like warmth pooling in your chest and spreading outward, reaching every corner of your body. Nothing more needs to happen. Everything is enough. You close your eyes completely, letting the gentle currents of energy, thought, and life drift into your awareness. There is no cliffhanger. There is only quiet. There is only rest. Inhale. Exhale. The river continues. And so do you.